Alright, hi there YouTube, it's me, Morphsuit America, and in this video I'll be talking about how to stack abilities in PSO2, or how to stack abilities when it comes to making your formulas and your affixes. Understand that if you don't know about this, if you don't know about Affix Simulator, check it out in the description below. I made videos talking about it. You want to use Affix Simulator to your advantage because you don't want to fuck up your formulas. You don't want to waste a bunch of Meseta when you can actually plan it out and scheme it out and actually see it physically in action before you go in-game and buy it. This is a very handy device. Now, this topic is talking about how to stack abilities. This is very important because when it comes to stacking abilities, you want to try to get to 100% or as high as possible when it comes to that percent transfer. I don't care if it's going to be on your weapon or units, this method is very handy. But here's the thing, you got to know the basics before you can even toy around with some things. When it comes to the basic abilities, this is not going to ring true to all of these abilities. Some of them may differ, some of them may be different, but let me talk about like some of the basic abilities like Power 3. Power 3 is going to be an ability that gives you plus 30 power, which is towards your S attack, excuse me. Now, as you can see, Power 3 by itself, if you decide to put it in your formula and try to get it to transfer onto whatever your final product is going to be at a Power 3. I mean, it's going to be at a Power 3, but it's also going to be at 60%. Now, 60% is okay. You could try to get it to 90% if you decide to use a plus 30% ability boost, but it's not at 100%. Here's the thing with me and my rules when it comes to actually making final fixes. I want to try to get to 100% so Dudu or Monica cannot fuck me up. If I had to gamble at that percentage, then so be it, but that's when I want to gamble. If I'm trying to make a final fix, I don't want any sort of RNG bullshit in there. So, if I decide to use two Power 3s in my formula somehow in some way, you get to see that that percentage at 60% went to 80%. Now, when it comes to stacking abilities as well, you can also upgrade to the higher tier. As you can see, having two Power 3s in my formula can also give me Power 4, but as you can see, it's at 20%, which isn't that great. Now, if I add another Power 3, now I got 3 Power 3s in there. You can see that the Power 3 is not at 100%, which is good. Now, if I was trying to get Power 4 into 100%, it's not going to happen. If I use a 30%, it can get it roughly around 70%, and if there's some other high ability boost item I can use, then it can even go further, but you don't want to use those abilities when you should use it for something good. Now, I'm not saying Power 4 isn't good, but there's an easier way to get to 100% with Power 4. The harder abilities would be like Power 5 and Power 6, but you can't make Power 6 as a special ability factor, which I'll make a separate video for that. Now, here's the thing. If you're thinking that if I have all these other Power 3s, could that increase the percentage for Power 4? That is not the case. That will not happen. And another thing I will point out, and let me get some other abilities down here. If I wanted to, let's say, work with a Shoot 4. And I also need to put some other abilities here, so let me do that real quick. You can see that for Shoot 4, if I have 3 of them, it's going to get increased to 80%. Now, to demonstrate my point with the stacking ability, by itself, it was only at 40%. Now, if I decided to stack another one, I have 2 Shoot 4s now in my formula. You can see that it's at 60%. A third one is at 80%. Now, here's the thing about this percentage. Even though it's at 80% and you can't increase it any further, you could use a boost item which then can boost it up to 100%. But as you can see, by having 3 Shoot 4s, I'm also able to unlock Shoot 5, which is at 30%. Pretty much what I'm trying to get at is that 3 is the magic number. You need 3 copies somewhere in your formula to get that particular ability to transfer at the highest percentage that it can offer. So, if you wanted to transfer a Shoot 4, for example, you need 3 of those copies to get the maximum percentage. You can use an ability boost item to get it even further, but that's the case for most abilities. There are a few exceptions which I will point out. As you just saw though, a couple of times when you stack these abilities, you can also go for a higher grade. For example, it was like how I got 3 Power 3s, I can actually get a Power 4. And then how I could have 3 copies of Shoot 4s, which can then go into a Shoot 5 if I wanted to. Understand that when it comes to stacking these abilities though, it will not increase that chance or that number when it comes to getting into that higher tier. So if I was taking these Shoot 4 examples, it doesn't matter if I have like 5 Shoot 5s in, if I have 5 Shoot 4s in my formula, that percentage to get to a Shoot 5 is still at 30%. Now here's the thing. Doom breaks are different with that thing. They do not follow that same concept. I don't know why and how, but doom breaks are weird like that, and I will demonstrate this right now. So I'm gonna shove a bunch of other abilities on here just to get my point across. This is gonna be random stuff. Of course, it's not gonna drop like this, but this is just to put something into the Affix Simulator. So with Doom Break, you see that it's at 50% with just 2 of them. Obviously, if I made a third one, it's at 80%, and then you now see the Doom Break 2 option. Here's the thing. If I continue to stack Doom Breaks, you can see that that percentage just went up. It didn't go down, it went up. Now, for Doom Break 1 in itself, you saw that the percentage is still the same even though I added 2 copies. But by adding more Doom Breaks into this, you see that at the very least, it was able to get a higher percentage with 5 copies. Now with 6, it's not going to work because it's still stuck at 50. But let me take these 2 out again, and once again, you see that it decreased. So with just 3 of them, it gives you 10%. With another one, it went up another 20% to a 30%, and now this one gave you 50%. Taking that concept, if I wanted to try to make Doom Break 3, that is the highest Doom Break grade right now. If there's another collab, they will release Doom Break 4, most likely, or the chance to make a Doom Break 4. But let me put Doom Break 2 in here just to demonstrate the point of making a Doom Break 3. So let me take these 2 out, and it still follows that same format. 3 copies, still at 80%. To make a Doom Break 3, it's at 10%. Putting 2 more copies to get 5 max, you see that it's at 50% for a Doom Break 3. It still followed the same formula with the Doom Break 1s trying to get into Doom Break 2. This is just one ability that can differ from that 3 is the max rule. And it also differed from the rule of like stacking so many of the same abilities. It was able to increase the percentage of the next higher grade. There's only a couple abilities to do that, so don't expect everything to do that sort of thing. Since I'm talking about these sort of things, let me also talk about the returners and cracks. Understand that when it comes to getting a higher grade for returner and cracks, there is an easy method to get a 1 grade and a 2 grade into a 3 grade. So, with returner, this can be done with the crack ability as well. You only need 2 to actually get the minimum chance of getting to a higher grade. So you do not need to have 3 copies to actually get it. If I decide to stack 3 of them, you can see that the percentage is still at 70, but it only increased the return 1 chance to get to 100%. But this is very handy because you don't need to overstack when it comes to returner 1s, crack 1s, or crack 2s, or returner 2s. In this next panel, you can see the same thing. If I had 3 of them, the percentage to get to a returner 3 is still at 50%, so you only need 2. This changes once it gets to returner 3 into a returner 4. You actually need 3 to do so. Now if I decide to stack on this, you can see that the percentage does not change for the higher grade. So 3 is the magic number when it comes to returners along with cracks once you get them to grade 3 and you're trying to go for 4 and even 5. The last part of this video will talk about abilities that you will not be able to transfer even if you got 3 copies. This is very important to know, and note that I'm not going to tell every one of these abilities. You need to figure it out yourself, but I'm going to give you guys some of the abilities that you may want to try to deal with and try to get 3 copies of, but it's not going to work. If you toy around with a Affix Simulator long enough, you'll be able to understand which one does what, how to go about it, and etc, etc. So, here's the thing. If you know about Astro Soul, Artifactor, and Manor Reverie, those are endgame abilities that are really hard to make just because of the demand that it requires. I'll make a separate video talking about it. I have another video talking about Astro Soul and what I had to deal with in the past when it wasn't that easy to make. You can check that out in the description below, or you can see it on the window right now. So here's the thing about Astro Soul and Artifactor. Even if you got 3 copies of them, doesn't matter if it's like on some godlike unit or something, you cannot transfer this. There's only one way to transfer an Astro Soul and an Artifactor, and there is only one way to get those 2 together, which I will demonstrate in the later formula and talk for such a thing. I actually made this unit in PSO2, in Japanese PSO2, and it wasn't that bad as long as you farm for the materials. But back to this point, yeah, these two cannot transfer. Now, when it comes to the catalysts, you could technically transfer them, but as you can see, even with 3, it's at 30%, and that's very, very low. There's no point for you to try to get it to transfer. Unless something bad really happened, you have to get it to transfer, but no, you shouldn't really do this, because the way to make a catalyst is still goddamn low. The last ability I'll highlight will be the receptors. Now, receptors are very, very handy abilities that can give you 100% transfer. Granted that some abilities cannot actually follow that rule, which I will explain later in my video talking about the souls and how they can be used to your advantage. But receptors cannot be transferred even if you got 3 copies of them. Now here's the thing, if you're playing on Western PSO2, understand that some of the receptors that you see in Affix Simulator may not be available to you. The reason being is because of the fact that you guys do not have PSO2 ES. Understand that PSO2 ES may be a lame phone app game to play, but the biggest reason why it's useful is because of these receptors, especially the soul and factor receptors. This allows you to make a formula that you can't make by itself. You can't even figure out another way to go around it. And the formula I'm referring to is having Astro Soul, Ether Factor, and Mana Rev together. The thing about making that formula is if you do it the original way, there is no goddamn way to actually combine them all. Now, if it's for a weapon, there is an exception to that, but when it comes to units especially, you can't do it without a receptor, and I'll showcase that in that special video. But understand that without PSO2 ES, I have no clue how Western PSO2 is going to tackle this small little issue. Understand that receptors are a good money-making method of selling and also buying and then also using, especially when it comes to making affixes. This concludes the video on how to use abilities and how to stack them. Use this to your advantage, especially when it comes to you going around the marketplace and going away from the prices that are stupid when you can actually toy with something that's really, really cheap and then build it up. You can also use this to your advantage to get to 100% when it comes to your transfers instead of dealing with some 90% and you still failing with that 90%. I don't want you guys to fail when it comes to the fixing, and I don't want you guys to waste your money when you can use it on something else like, you know, playing Fashion Simulator or Waifu/Husbando/Trap Simulator. So thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully this video will give you clarity on what to do with this basic concepts. There's a lot more to it when it comes to affixing, but this is just one thing out of all the many building blocks, and once you have all the foundations, once you know everything, you'll be able to master your own formulas. You can create your own formulas and you can do whatever you want with it. Power to you. So if you guys got any questions, comments, concerns, leave it down below. But I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!